Alright, hey guys, I'm back. And I've made another mistake. So, recently I took out a 1957 dual stroke Leica M3. So one thing to note is that the M3, because of the age, does not have any internal meter. And so what that means, you'll either have to use an external meter or you'll have to estimate the exposure. Now one thing that they do is, on the back of the camera, you can see there, is they provide this little indicator which you can use to help be a trigger for you on what is the film that I have in there, or the speed of the film that I have in there, to help you with getting exposure correct. Now what you'll have noticed is that it only goes up to 1000 ISO, which back in 1957 wouldn't have been a problem. Fast forward to 2020 and films like P3200, and it can be a problem. So shortly after I received the camera, I went and loaded some P3200 and took some pictures, but didn't finish a roll. Waited a couple of weeks before I took that one back out and just shot it as I normally would at ISO 400. So I didn't think anything of it after that until I finished the roll and rewind it, and I take out the film, and guess what? I realize it's P3200, but I've been shooting it at 400. Then I realized that in the beginning I had shot it at 3200. And so what do? We go with the lazy man's development method. We're going to do some stand developing. So stand development is pretty straightforward, pretty simple. 1 part Rodinal per 100 parts water. It actually is able to develop for these types of situations without blowing out your highlights. The theory is that you have this very dilute developer, and so once you stop agitating it, you basically never refresh that developer that's on the film itself. And so the highlights are the areas that have been exposed to more light. The developer exhausts itself very quickly there because there's more of these silver ions, basically these charged silver atoms that are there, which consume the developer, right? The developer is working on reducing those to kind of a stable silver non-charged atom. And so this developer in those areas will exhaust relatively quickly because there's lots of population of these positively charged silver atoms. But then in the shadows, where there is not such a population of these positively charged silver atoms, the developer will work for a much longer period of time. And so it's able to develop those without exhausting itself. And basically, by the time you get to the end of that hour, it's achieved a relatively useful density without blowing out your highlights. And so that's what we're going to try. That's the theory. Now, I've done a version of stand development in the past, but I wasn't really wild about those results. But that was a very different roll of film. That was something where I had just very poorly exposed the film. So we're going to try it again and just see how it goes. Alright, so we're back. Stand development done. And the drum roll. What did I think? So honestly, still not really wild about stand development. You know, the impressive part was
Didn't see anything in ways of really out of control highlights.
The shadows were developed pretty well as far as kind of density, but the grain was pretty heavy compared to what I typically like. And honestly, when I scanned it, I was pretty underwhelmed with the results. One thing I do want to try is to print them in the darkroom and just see how they look there. Maybe it'll look a bit different on photo paper with a real silver print, so I'm going to give that a try. Once I do, I'll post some links to some of those pictures, or maybe do a separate video on that depending on what it looks like. But overall, stand development, not really for me. If you're someone that likes a lot of grain and wants to be able to vary your film speed throughout a roll pretty dramatically, I mean, this went from 400 to 3200, and I would say usable results across that whole range. So if you're someone that is looking for that, give it a try. It's certainly straightforward, certainly cheap. But yeah, in summary, stand development, maybe for some people, not really for me. But I'd be interested in hearing comments. So do you stand develop? If so, if you got any tips, tricks, do's, don'ts, leave them in the comments below. Let me know what you think. And that's all I got. So thanks, guys. Peace.